Hello guys, this is the Card Game Theorist, and today I'm going to be talking about what I think is the current best deck in Speed Duel right now and the deck to beat. So the deck to beat, in my opinion, is a Moth deck, and I personally call it a Shock Moth, and you'll see why it's called that. But if you don't know what a Moth deck is, we'll go and explain it. So a Moth deck plays the skill Cocoon of Ultra Evolution, which is a Weevil skill. So it has two parts to the skill. We contribute one insect monster from either field equipped with an equipped card, and if we do, we special summon one insect from our deck, ignoring its summoning conditions. The second part of the skill is we can shuffle an insect from our graveyard into our deck, and then we can draw the card. And then each of these skills can only be used once per duel, but we can use both of them in the same turn. So my opinion on this skill is that it's quite overpowered, and it's going to be a thing throughout Speed Duel unless there is some sort of massive change to the game in like how it's played, or they change the effect and put a restriction on it by saying like maybe you'll lose your battle phase. But so this deck is like it has a combo where if you play it, it's going to be very hard to lose that game. You're probably going to win on the spot, but you don't need to use your combo. You can just like grind through games with your other cards, but the combo includes these three cards. So if we have Perfectly Ultimate Great Moth in our hand, which is a level 8 insect, which we can't contribute for. It's got 35 3k stats. We also need Parasite Paranoid. So it's a quick effect, and we can activate it from our hand. We target one face-up monster on the field and equip this card from our hand to that target. The equipped monster becomes an insect, and it cannot attack insect monsters. Also, its effects that activate by targeting an insect monster are negated. So that combats a couple of decks. Also, we can only use that effect of Parasite Paranoid once per turn. And then if this equipped card is sent to the graveyard, we can special summon one level 7 or higher insect monster from our hand, ignoring summoning conditions. So that's our combo. We can activate this, get rid of any face-up monster on the field, most likely going to be theirs. We can summon a Moth from our deck with our skill, and we can summon a Moth from our hand to the field and put 7,000 damage onto the field by using one card, which is an insane tempo swing. But you may say, oh, but what if your opponent has Spell or Trap to combat this? So we play Bizer Shock, and that is a new card which came out in the structure decks. So if you don't know what this card does, we will explain it now. So it's a level 5 Dark Fiend with 800, 600 stats. And if this card is summoned, we return all set cards on the field to the hand. So the opponent playing against Moth may not want to be putting monsters face up that we can activate Parasite on to get rid of. So they're going to be setting monsters. So we tribute the Visor Shock, and we're going to be bouncing their Spell and Trap and their monsters back to the hand. So once that's resolved, we can then activate our Parasite on our Visor Shock. We're going to tribute our Visor Shock away. We're going to be summoning a Moth from our deck, and we're possibly going to be summoning a Moth from our hand, and we're going to be pushing for game that way. And that is quite an insane push. Are are the cards that combat this. Not really. Well, they sort of combat it. So the the 4 cards that they can change to Bison Shock are Nightmare Wheel. So that's not going to do anything because the Nightmare Wheel, the Bison Shock, and the Bison Shock's going to the graveyard with the Parasite, and we're going to be summoning a Moth from our deck and possibly from our hand. So that does nothing. The next card is Zoma's the Spirit, which came out in the structure deck. So we're going to tribute summon Bison Shock, and they're going to chain Zoma. So the Zoma is going to come to the field, and then we're just going to activate the Parasite on the Zoma, tribute the Zoma, summon a Moth from our deck, and we don't need one from our hand, because that's more than 4k damage. But we can summon one from our hand, and then that limits the cards the opponent can have to stop us from killing them. Like, they don't need like 1 card to stop us, they need 2 cards to stop us from killing them. So the next card to potentially stop us is Floodgate Trap Hole. So when we normal summon our Bison Shock, well, tribute summon our Bison Shock, this will become Chainlink 1, and the opponent Chainlink 2, the Floodgate Trap Hole. So if we don't have Parasite, this is going to go face down and it's going to bounce to our hand, because Bison Shock will be Chainlink 1. But if we do have Parasite, we can Chainlink 3, the Parasite, onto our Bison Shock. So Chainlink 3 resolves, equips this to Bison Shock. Chainlink 2 resolves, which is the Floodgate, which is setting the Bison Shock. And Chainlink 1 resolves, putting this back to our hand. Then, because this was equipped, this goes to the graveyard because Bison Shock is no longer on the field, and then this will trigger. So if we have the Moth in, so we only chain it when we have the Moth in hand. So once we chain it, we summon our Moth, and then we're getting 3,500 in. We can also shuffle this back in with our skill to draw the card. So their Floodgate is kind of became irrelevant because we've got all 3 Parasite back in our deck, and we have Bison Shock in our hand, so we're going to go off on them again later in the game. And then the last one that they can do is contribute for Bison Shock, effect Chainlink 1, and they Chainlink 2 Offerings to the Doomed. So if our hand doesn't contain Parasite Moth, the Bison Shock dies, and they lose their next draw. So their next turn, because you summon Bison, your hand is like telegraphed that you have the Parasite, so they have to set. If they don't set and they summon, you have a way to just Moth them next turn. But if you do have the Parasite and the Moth in hand, you can Chainlink 3 the Parasite. So Parasite resolves Chainlink 3, Chainlink 2 pops the Bison Shock. Chainlink 1 is the Bison Shock that bounces all set cards. So Chain resolved, Parasite goes to the grave, and then Parasite activates as Chainlink 1, summoning our Moth from our hand, and we're hitting for 3,500. Putting our opponent down to 500, and the opponent has no lost their draw phase, so they have to answer us with the cards they have, and if they don't, they're in a lot of trouble. We also can recycle our Parasite to net us another card, and we haven't used our skill to summon our Moth, so later in the game, if it does go late, we can just blow them out with Parasite into Moth, and they're on 500, so all we need to do is just attack any monster in an attack position and it's game over. So the opponent has to play cautiously, because once you top Parasite, you win. To So the other cards that we play are Dokuichi, because we want to be seeing our cards. So this is a flip effect, level 4 Dark Machine, and it's 14,000, and it's flip draw 1 card. So we want to be seeing our cards as frequent as we can. We want to be seeing the Parasite as frequent as we can. And sometimes we want to be seeing multiple Parasite in circumstances. There's other reasons we play Dokuichi. One of them is that we also play Dust Tornado. So we can set a Dokuichi and a Dust Tornado. The opponent attacks our Dokuichi. We can draw Zoma the Spirit off the Dokuichi. Then we can end phase Dust Tornado their spell or trap, and we can set Zoma the Spirit. Come to our turn, we draw, we can Zoma the Spirit. We can then tribute for Visor Shock, bounce everything, and that's our combo. So it's quite hard to combat all that. So now I've explained the combo, I'm now going to explain the quantities of the cards I play. So for Moth, I play 2 copies of Moth. So we want to be playing multiple copies of it because we want to at least be summoning 1 from hand and 1 from deck. We don't really want to be playing 3 copies of it because we don't want to be seeing multiple copies in hand. Also, because we play 3 Dokuichi, we're going to be getting deep into our deck. And we also play another card which digs deep into our deck. And then the last reason why we want to be playing multiple Moth is one way to combat Moth is when they try and go off with their Parasite on a monster, you can chain your Parasite from your hand if your hand also contains Moth. So they use their skill, they get rid of the monster with the equipped Parasites, they summon a Moth from deck, and if they can't summon a Moth from hand, your Moth is coming out from your hand. So it's Moth v Moth. So they're left in, they either have to ram the Moths or they can pass. So if they attempt to ram the Moths, you can either let it go because you have not used your skill yet and they have. So you can then get rid of a problem monster later in the game with your Parasite and just summon a Moth which they can't answer. Or you can sphere their Moth to defense, and then when it comes to your turn, you can attack over their Moth. So then you have a Moth on the field, they have no Moth on the field, and you still have access to your skill. So your opponent is just going against your opponent, and it's ahead in your favour from there. So the next card we play is a triple Parasite Paranoid. Here we go. So as I said, we want to be playing multiples of this card because this isn't just a card where we go activate and get rid of it and then it's dead. It has multiple applications. The other one is what I just said, where we can equip it when the opponent is going to go off with their skill. The other is when they're trying to ram Moths. We can activate our Parasite onto their Moth so they can't attack our insect Moth. So then later on we can try and find an out to their Moth another way and get rid of it, so then we have a Moth and they don't, and then they're in big trouble. That's it really for that. So I said I play Visor Shock and we play 2 copies of it. So it's kind of like Moth, why we run 2, because we don't want to be seeing like multiple in hand by playing like 3 copies, and we don't really want to be playing 6 monsters that we can't summon. Because if we have like 6 copies of a card that just does nothing with like no setup, then it's just going to come to a point in some games where we're going to go first and we're going to open like 1 or 2 copies and we're just going to lose because we opened the multiples of these cards when going first. Another reason why we play 2 is because we played the Kuchi and the other card that I'm going to mention. So we play 3 Takuchi. Here we go. So we want to be digging deep into our deck, and we want to be trying to get it over the game over as fast as we can. So that's why we play 3 copies of the card. That's it really. It's just here to like cycle cards, and if it does survive we can go aggressive with the 1400. So the next monster we play is Double Newdoria. So if you don't know what this does, this card came out in the structure deck, like a few of these cards. It is a level 4 Dark Fiend with 1200, 800, and its effect is if this card is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, we can target 1 monster on the field and we can destroy that target. So this card is like All Vindictive Magician. The reason why we chose Newdoria over All Vindictive is that this can be normal summoned and can apply a pressure onto our opponent. It also can be set and disguised as a Takuchi, because the opponent may think it's a Takuchi if they haven't seen Newdoria previously. They can attack with their smaller monster into the Newdoria, and then you can pop their big monster and not lose any damage. You can also use it kind of aggressively, so you can have like a big, like a Moth on field, and you can summon a Newdoria, and you can hit your Newdoria into like the big monster and pop their like face down monster, and then the Moth can go over the big monster. So like you're clearing their board and getting rid of face downs which can threaten your Moth. You can also 2-for-1 with this card. If the opponent leaves a 1200 attack position monster, you can just like ram it and then kill the big monster. Also, the card is kind of, well, it's better than All Vindictive against like Gaia, because All Vindictive you have to set it and you don't want to be setting against Gaia, so you can just like normal summon Newdoria, and then your opponent either has to kill it with Gaia or with another monster if they play it. Or you can use like a card that gets rid of monsters, like Orders to Charge or Offerings to Doomed on it, but like you're happy if they're using those spells on Newdoria, because this cost of those cards. So for the spells we play Triple Law of Darkness. So this card reads, draw 2 cards, then banish 1 card, 1 dark monster from your hand, or if you do not have any dark monsters in your hand, we send our entire hand to the graveyard. So this is the reason why we're playing like not 3 copies of Moth or Bioshock, because we're going to be playing a Law of Darkness, and a Law of Darkness is going to be turboing through our deck, and finding us the cards and banishing the cards that we don't need, and it's going to establish our combo quite fast. I personally think that this is a mistaken speed duel. Like, in like the main game, you have 40 cards, so to see this card, it's like it's not going to be often you see this card. But in speed duel, because your deck is going to be like 20 to 30 cards, it's just going to be like insane how often you may see this card. So I was like doing the percentages on it. So if you go second and I play 22 cards, I'm going to see it 56% of the time. If I was to play 20 cards, I will see it 60% of the time. So I only really lose 4% by playing those extra 2 cards. So that's basically 1 game in every 25 I play. If I was to play more, to see it in your opening hand of 4 while playing 22, it's like 48%. So it's obviously just not, it's under 50%. But when you're playing Takuchi and you're just going to be hitting this card, because I don't really do looking on 4 cards, because you're just going to be passing that turn because you can't do anything anyway. So I always look for 5, because that's either you go first and you're fit and your second turn, which is your first attacking turn, so you saw 5 cards, or you've went second and you saw 5 cards. But with us using like Takuchi, that's going to get us net like a 6th card that we see, and possibly a 7th. So the likelihood of seeing a law is like very high. And personally, this is a reason like why I don't like this card in speed duel. Not only by playing like Takuchi are you going to be seeing a law more, your law can banish your Takuchi. So it's just like, it's going to make these decks turbo-y in the future. But it is what it is, and I will abuse this card as much as I can for combo decks to see our combo. And then for the traps, we play obviously 3 Dust Tornado, because we want to be keeping the equip off monsters. And we also want to be setting our Zoomers that we play 2 copies of. The reason why we play 2 copies is because I don't want to be playing 23 cards, so I don't want to be playing 3 copies of this card, and I can't really cut any other card. What Zoma also does is that, because if we connect a Moth to the opponent, that leaves them on 500. So if the opponent manages to come back and get our Moth off the field and like stabilize, it's going to be hard to try and get that extra 500 damage in. So by playing Zoma, they now need to answer Zoma, and if they're on 500, that's going to be very hard, since the defense of Zoma is 500. So to kill it in defense, they need at least 550, and that will kill them off the burn effect, which is quite good. It's a card that maybe I would increase to 3 if I could somehow cut cards, which I don't think I can. A card that I don't play, which I wish I play, is Nightmare Wheel. So what that does is that we play, it's like Spellbind and Circle, where we can activate it on opponent's monster, and it stops it from attacking and switching back position. And then every standby phase of my turn, it burns them for 500. So if we get that 35 in with the Moth, then the Nightmare Wheel is going to be dealing that extra 500 to end the game. But I can't fit it in. And then the last two cards we play are two Sphere. So this card is like the only card that can defend us against Bison Moth. And that's why we play two copies of it. We don't want to really be seeing multiples of this card. That's why we want to play two. Because if we have multiples of this card, then even though it may stop them from OTKing us, then we need to have a response for them. And when our hand consists of two Sphere, then it's not likely that we're going to have the cards to respond to our opponent. So to have a hand like two Sphere consistently, we need to be playing three, and I just disagree with that. I'll just take the loss if the opponent can combo off and have buys a double Moth. So that is it. I do not have a side deck for this deck because I don't really see the point of putting up a side deck when there's not really an established meta. And then for the fusion deck, you can just use any 6 fusions. Because if you're not playing Waking the Dragon, it doesn't matter on what fusions you play. But if you do, you want to be putting in Thousand Eyes Restrict. You also want to be playing Arcana Knight Joker, and you also want to be playing Ryu Senshi. Because they are the best fusions currently in the game. So that is the deck profile and the little discussion on why I think this deck is the best deck. So I've been playing it on Duel book, and I've been doing quite well. Currently sitting in 10th place. And I'm just going to try and grind out and get fit. Try and get into the top 5 and possibly first. So if you would take it, since you've arrived at the end, if you would like and comment on this video, I'll be quite happy. And hopefully you can give me some advice to try and make my video content a little bit better. And try and just give me some inspiration on what videos to bring out for you guys. Anyway, this is a Card Game Theorist out, and I'll see you guys next time.